guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be my birth story with my second daughter, Caroline. Hey guys, I'm going to pause the video real quick to pop on here and say a few things. First, this video is a little lengthy, but please hang in there. I promise you it's a good one. And second, I refer to Caroline as not being 6 months old yet, and she is now 6 months old at the time that this video will be posted on my YouTube channel. Also, go ahead, if you're new here, hit that like and subscribe button. And the last thing is I had my phone flipped upside down than I normally do when I do sit down videos. And I was looking at the wrong part of the phone the whole time. I was not looking at the camera, so that's why my eyes look like that. So sorry about that. And without further ado, let's get to the video. Who is sitting right here? She has some serious separation anxiety because we have been together every single day since she was born, so it is very hard for her to not be near me. So I am filming this on the floor because she is on the floor next to me in her seat. That's the only way I could get her to stop crying, because my son, who is 2, is taking his nap right now, so I don't want her to wake him up, so she is next to me. So if you hear any noises, that's who that's from. So, okay, let's just jump right in. I am doing the birth story of my second baby, who is 6 months old this Saturday. I am doing her birth story because it is the one that is most fresh in my mind, because it was only 6 months ago, and my son, who is 2, that was, well, he's like 2.5, so that was obviously 2.5 years ago. So I want to do that one as well. If you guys are interested in that, leave a comment below. Let me know if you want to hear my first birth story. It's quite different than this one, obviously, but that one I would need to sit down and probably write it out, because I need to really search deep down in this brain to get that memory. So with that, we are going to just dive in. I found out I was pregnant in November of 2018, which made me due August 6th of 2019. I was induced with my son, and I was really wanting to be induced with her, just because I am type A control freak personality, and it gave me a lot of anxiety, made me very nervous. The thought of going into labor in the middle of the night, with a 2, well, he wasn't 2, he was almost 2. He turned 2 that September, so he was almost 2. The thought of going into labor in the middle of the night, what was I going to do with my son? We already knew my mom was going to watch him, but it just seemed like for all parties involved and for my sense of calm and peace, that I had a scheduled induction, so that way Weston was taken care of, Justin could take time off of work. I was working at the time, and then that way I could let my work know and my mom could let her work know. So I actually had brought it up to my OB at, I want to say like my 38 week appointment, let her know that that was what I wanted to do, and she was totally okay with that. She said that she didn't, sorry, I gotta fix my glasses. She said that she didn't do scheduled inductions for a non-medical reason with first-time moms, but second-time moms and third-time moms, people that already had children. She did that for childcare purposes because she gets it. You know, there could be situations with people that they don't have any family that live around them, so they had to get it scheduled because, you know, they needed their family to watch their baby, and my doctor understood that. She was really okay with it. Doctor's office on Wednesdays, and she delivers babies on Thursdays. So she said it just depended on how my cervix was dilating. If I wasn't dilating at all, then they were going to have me come in on a Wednesday night and get Cervidil and then stay overnight and then start Pitocin in the morning. But if I was dilating, then I would just come in Thursday morning and she would induce me with Pitocin. And I didn't have any worry about me dilating because I dilated to a 4 with my son when I was induced with him. And so I figured I would dilate with her, and I was right. I did. When I went in with her, I was dilated to a 3. So I had been dilating up at my weekly appointment. So my doctor scheduled me to come in on a Thursday morning. So we woke up Thursday morning. I think I woke up, I want to say around 6 a.m. because they tell you to call 2 hours ahead of your scheduled time. My scheduled time was 8 a.m. So I woke up at 6 a.m. I called them probably around 6:30, you know, just give them a little bit of time. The delivery unit was backed up and that they would have to push my time to mid-morning, early afternoon. So I started to get serious anxiety because I was scared that we weren't going to get induced at all. And at this point, I was only 39 weeks pregnant. So I was scared if we didn't get in that day, since my doctor only delivers 1 day a week, was I going to have to wait a whole nother week? And I had already told my work, and Justin had already scheduled his time off with work, and my mom was going to have to pick up Weston. We were going to take him over to his daycare at the time, and she was going to pick him up. So he was going to go to daycare all day. She was going to pick him up in the evening, and we were planning on already being in the hospital by then. So Justin was up, but he decided to go back to sleep. I could not sleep. There was just no way I could sleep. My mind was going 1,000 miles a minute. So I got up, did some stuff around the house, and around 10 a.m. I called them and was like, hey, do we have any updates? They said they were still backed up. It was probably sometime that afternoon that they would just give me a call. So at this point, I was really starting to freak out. I did not think I was going to get in that day. So Justin was like, let's go take Weston to daycare, to his aunt's house who watched him. Let's take him to daycare. Let's go get some lunch. Let's just, you know, maybe run some errands. Just get out of the house so we're not thinking about it, and just wait for them to call us. Because at that point, we had all our bags packed. The house was clean. I had been full on nesting, and I had taken a couple days off before of work, so I had been full on nesting, everything. I was completely prepared and ready to go. So we took Weston to daycare, and then decided to go get some lunch. I didn't really want greasy fast food, and I knew it was probably gonna be the last time I ate if I got into the hospital, you know, in the afternoon. So we decided to go to McAllister's. So we had dropped Weston off on the complete opposite side of town, drove all the way to McAllister's, placed our order at McAllister's, and as soon as we sat down, we got the phone call from the hospital telling us to be there in the next 45 minutes. So we asked the girl at McAllister's that delivered our food to bring us a box, and we took it to go. I barely ate anything, which I regretted because I was in labor for a little bit. And Justin scarfed down his food. We got into the car and we raced home. We had to still grab our bags. We didn't have our bags in the car because they said late afternoon. And at this point, it was only like noon. So we didn't have the bags, so we had to drive all the way home. All checked in, got into our room, got hooked up to IVs and stuff, gave them all of our information, and they started Pitocin. I was at a 3. My contractions felt mild, nothing crazy, just, you know, uncomfortable, but not in a lot of pain. And something that I'll explain in my son's birth story is I got my epidural way too soon with my son, and I hardly felt any contractions with him at all, but I felt his entire birth. Or my main goal with this one was to not get my epidural too early, to tough out some contractions, get farther along in my dilation, and then get my epidural so that way it would work and I hopefully would not feel that whole birth experience, because that was very, very painful. So I was at, I want to say about a 5, and time in the evening, I can't remember when, the doctor came in and she broke my water. For both my births, I had my doctor break my water. My water did not break on its own. But the one thing, and I had the same doctor for both babies, the one thing that kind of irritated me with my doctor is she was just down. I thought she was just checking my cervix. She did not come in and say, like with my first, she came in, she was like, let's break your water so we can get things moving. I was like, okay. But with my second, she just came in and I thought she was just doing a cervical check. She didn't like really say much, and then she goes, okay, now I'm gonna break your water, and she was like down there already, and I was like, what, like it threw me off. And she was like, well, is that okay? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, but like you didn't say anything to me. And she just did it, and it was fine. I trust my doctor. I just didn't appreciate her not like saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do, is this okay? I think she was just in a rush, and she just got down there like she was doing a cervical check, and she just broke my water. Contractions started to intensify and I could not get a comfortable spot laying down. My back hurt, like sitting up, laying down, like on my side. I had not gotten my epidural at this point. I just couldn't get comfortable. So my nurse was like, well, why don't you try a birthing ball? So she got me on a birthing ball. That's something that I did not do with my son, so I was excited to do with my daughter. Because my son, I got my epidural really early, so I was restrained to the bed pretty much the whole time with my son. So I was on the birthing ball, and that's when my contractions really started to pick up. And while I was on the birthing ball, I could feel more of my amniotic fluid, more of my water coming out. And started to really pick up. And I was in tears, and she was like, you know, there's no shame in getting an epidural. And I was like, I know, I just wanted to kind of be farther along. I kind of wanted to be like a 7 or 8 when I got my epidural, just so all I had it for was like the pushing part. And they were coming pretty regularly at this point. I want to say it was like every 3 minutes. So I could like barely catch my breath, and they would start again, and I was in a lot of pain. So I was like, fine, I'll do the epidural, let's do the epidural. So the anesthesiologist got there like extremely quick. They didn't let Justin in the room when they were doing the epidural, so he left. He was like, I'll just go get something to eat. The anesthesiologist came in, he did my epidural. I explained to him, this is something that I had to explain to my first anesthesiologist with my first birth. I had a wet tap. For those of you that don't know, a wet tap is when you get an epidural and the hole from the shot, or the incision, I guess, I don't know what it's called, the hole from the shot does not close, and you leak spinal fluid, which makes all the fluid, like brain, spinal column, everything, it makes it very low, and I had very severe headaches. I had gotten that because I have chronic back pain, and I would get epidurals in my back for back pain. And I want to say this was like 2014, 2015, so it's been a while. I got a wet tap, and the hole didn't close, and I was leaking spinal fluid, and I was leaking fluid in my brain. And it was very painful and uncomfortable and dangerous. And the only way that fixed it was for them to take blood out of my body and inject it back into my spine. This sounds awful. To clot the hole so the fluid would stop coming out. It eventually heals on its own, but it takes 6 weeks, and I could not take 6 weeks of being in that. I mean, it was wrenching pain, could not work, like the worst migraine times 10. Like I had to lay flat. That was the only time that I didn't have a migraine. So I had to have 2 blood patches back in 2014. It wasn't a baby epidural. I was getting epidurals for chronic back pain. And I finally resolved itself. I was fine. I was okay. Thank God. It was terrifying. So I had explained to both anesthesiologists for both births because I got epidurals in both, that I had a wet tap before, so to be very mindful of that when they were doing my epidural. I just like them to be aware, because I could have gotten a wet tap again from the epidurals with my babies, which I didn't, thank the Lord. My epidural, he could not find my spine. It seemed like it took forever, and it was a lot of pain, and I was like, I could only feel that on the right, I can only feel it in the center. Like it was just not, I don't know, I did not like him. So he said he finally got it all taken care of, got me patched up, laid me on my back. Justin came back in the room. Well, then I was laying down because you have to lay flat for a while after you have your epidural. Justin started to get this really concerned look on his face, and I was feeling really weird, and my mouth was numb, like my face was numb. I was feeling super cold and very lethargic, and all of a sudden my nurse just burst back into the room. My blood pressure was very low, like I think it was like, I don't really know the number, but I want to say it was like 80/60. Like it was super low. I don't know what the number is. I think that was what it was, but it was very low enough to cause my nurse to get concerned and to come back in. And Justin I could tell he was scared. He said at the time he wasn't scared, but then later after we talked about it, he said he was scared because he said that I literally turned like white as a ghost, like all the color left my face, and I just looked like I literally was gonna pass out. And that's what I felt like, and I couldn't move, and I was numb literally from the face down. It was terrifying. So they had the anesthesiologist come back in and stop my epidural, completely stop the epidural. They stopped everything. I had to get some medicine to like raise my blood pressure back up. Caroline was fine, everything was fine with her, but it was just a very scary moment. And then they quit my epidural, and I don't think they stopped my epidural. and then they gradually made it come back up, but I think I didn't have after I got the epidural, I don't think I had any pain medicine for probably, I want to say, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because they were scared I was going to drop my blood pressure again. So then finally, after a couple hours and my blood pressure coming back up to a normal level, I was able to push the button again to get my epidural, but it just wasn't working. And at this point, this was like, I want to say like 8 o'clock at night, I was starting to feel a lot of pressure, like I wanted to push. So she came in and she checked me and she said I was like at, I want to say like an 8 or a 9, and that was at 8 o'clock. So they sat me in like an upright position just to have, because I was dilated, but her head just wasn't all the way there. So to have gravity do its work and have her come out, the epidural, I was pressing the button. They had the anesthesiologist come back in. It was just not working at all. I was in so much pain, just the pressure of feeling like I needed to push and her being there. It was very intense, and no epidural was in sight to help. So at like 9:30, they started getting the stuff ready, all the instruments and everything, the table set up and everything for me to start pushing. And the doctor came in at 10 o'clock and I started pushing, and I think she was in there from the get because it was my second baby and they knew it was going to be a lot faster than my first, which it was, and I will explain that in my first birth story. But with my first son, I pushed for 4 hours. 4 hours. It was miserable. But with her, I only pushed for, I think, 28 minutes, 29 minutes, something like that. So I started pushing at like 10:02, I want to say, and I did, I think, 6 rounds of pushing. Her head was right there, and they kept telling me over and over, she's right there, she's right there. And by like the 4th time, I was very irritated because I was in a lot of pain, and I could feel everything. The epidural was not working at all, and I was like, can you just suck her out? Because my son was a vacuum assist, he had to be vacuumed out, and I was like, can you just suck her out, like please get her out, because I was in so much pain. I could just feel her right there, and I just needed to get her out, and she would not come out. And my doctor finally determined that it was my scar tissue from, I had tore with my first baby. I tore really bad with him, and I had a pretty big scar, and she said my scar tissue was not stretching enough for her head to come out. So she gave me an episiotomy, and once she gave me the episiotomy, she flew out, and I remember literally the doctor saying, okay, you're done, let me do it from here. Like I didn't have to push anymore. She just came on out. And unlike, oh, you got your passy in your mouth by yourself, good girl. And unlike my son, who was a vacuum assist, he didn't have to go out of the room to the NICU, but there was like 12 people in the room, and there was doctors working on him to make sure he was okay, because it was a very long, he was in the birth canal for a very long time, and he had to be vacuumed out just to make sure he was okay, and he was fine. But with my daughter, because she did not have to be vacuumed out, they were able to put her on my chest immediately, and I did not get that with my son, which was very sad, but I got it with my daughter. And I'm sure if you are a mom who has given birth and has had experienced that moment of your kid on your chest for the first time, there is no other feeling in the world. I am not going to cry, but I feel like crying because that was one of the most emotional moments of my life. Not trying to take away from my son's birth, because my son's birth was just as emotional, but getting to experience that was just the most amazing feeling. And they told me that they said she had a lot of hair, like when I was in the process of pushing, and then she gets out and I'm like, guys, this is not a lot of hair. My son had way more hair than that. And she was on my chest and she was crying, and we made eye contact, and it was just so beautiful. But what I didn't know, because I was not paying attention whatsoever, I was just in this joyful bliss of having my new baby on my chest, is that after I had pushed her out, a giant amount of blood followed her, and I guess it had like gone all over my doctor, all over the floor. It went on Justin, it got on his arm because he was right there holding my leg. I had no idea that this was happening. Justin had told me after the fact. I literally had no idea that this was going on. I just pushed her out. I was so happy to have my new baby on my chest, and I'm so relieved to be over with. And I guess they were very concerned that I was going to hemorrhage, and that I was losing a lot of blood. So at that point, she started to go back inside with her arm and scoop out all the remaining, I had to give birth to the placenta and all the remaining, I'm sorry, this is TMI, all the remaining fluid and blood to make sure that the placenta didn't rupture, that everything was okay, and I was not going to hemorrhage and die. And that was extremely painful, and I'm trying to hold a newborn baby who is screaming on my chest. She cried for an hour because she just wanted to nurse so bad, and I couldn't nurse her because they were trying to clean me up and stitch me up. So they got all that taken care of. They stitched me up. Everything was good. I was okay, but I guess Justin said, because he was taking pictures, that the doctor had told him to not tell family and friends yet, because she was very nervous about the whole hemorrhaging thing. And that really, I guess, scared Justin, obviously, scared him. I had no idea she had said that. He told me after the fact, so that was just something that was pretty scary. It was a pretty scary situation, but we were all fine, super healthy. And I had her on my chest, and they stitched me up, and then finally, once they got everything cleaned up, it was probably about 45 minutes, and she's crying the entire time because she just wants to eat so bad. She wanted to nurse, and I was getting very frustrated because I just wanted to nurse her so she would calm down and quit crying, because I knew she was probably hungry and the stress of, you know, birth and all of that stuff. So she was born at 10:31 p.m. on August 1st. They didn't weigh her for like an hour, which I thought that was crazy. But with my son, because he was vacuum assisted, they did all of that like right away out the gate. So with her, they didn't do that, and I thought that was so nuts. So she was 7 pounds, 15 ounces, I think 21 it was like 21 3/4 inches long, a good size, healthy baby girl. I pushed for 29 minutes, and after they got us all cleaned up and everything, they just left us alone, and I nursed her. They put us in the recovery room. I want to say like it was about 4 in the morning at this point that they put us in the recovery room. I was very tired. I'd been almost up for 24 hours at this point. And so Justin, we got in the room, and luckily the cafeteria was open, and he went and got me some food, and that was the best ever, and brought me back up. And then we were just there in the hospital enjoying our new baby. My son got to meet her that morning, probably, I want to say like 10 a.m., something like that. So it was about 12 hours after she'd been born, my son got to come up and meet her. I can insert some footage here of that, because I do have that, because we weren't vlogging at the time, so I didn't have anything from the birth, but I'll insert pictures and videos here.
It's okay.
She's okay, yeah. Yeah, you like holding her? You want to be all done?
No.
No? Okay.
That's a good sign, right?
You want to see her mingers?
Yeah.
Look. Look. You gotta yep, be gentle. Look. Look at her mingers. You see them? Yeah, those are her fingers. Look how little. You see? Yeah. That's her eye. Yep, you can't touch it. Be gentle.
What's this?
Her cheeks.
What's this?
And her hair. And her piggies.
What's this?
Oh, that's Daddy's blanket. Yeah.
A nice blanket.
Yeah. Did you have fun at Lisa's today?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
We do.
Who'd you play with? She's going to be 6 months on Saturday the 1st, and she has her first tooth already, so that's what she's got, all this drool. I can hardly believe it. She is just the most perfect addition to our family, and if you guys want to see my first birth, or if you guys want to hear about my first birth story, let me know in the comments. Follow me on Instagram at Kate with 2 T's Gates. And if you guys want to hear about my postpartum journey, my breastfeeding journey, the decision to switch to formula, all that stuff, let me know. I'd be happy to share all of that stuff. I think, us as moms, we have to stick together and just, go along the journey and share our journeys with others, and don't judge others, and be kind, and I am going to sign off, and make sure you follow me on Instagram, like this video, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, say bye.